All right, the Dallas Mavericks step up and win game one of the NBA's Western Conference final. And this was a very impressive performance from the road side, the Mavericks, in this game. The big players I thought really came to play, literally and figuratively, big players. We'll get to that in a little bit. But for Luka Doncic, sorry, he was his usual, regular, awesome self. His reads and passes are just fantastic. We talked a bit before about how Jokic was like a computer program, like if yes, then this. If no, then this. Luka has such a feel for the game and such an understanding of where he can get passes to that no one else even expects you to. And he was tremendous in that, and his understanding of what he can do, his ability to get out of things when he is in danger, all of that was on full display. And Rudy Gobert is legitimately one of the best defensive players in the history of the National Basketball Association, and Luka toyed with that man. He picked Gobert apart in the pick and roll. Some of those lobs, he was just messing with him. There was no right answer for Rudy Gobert in how to defend Luka Doncic, who I thought put on a masterpiece in game one. He did a good job of drawing Rudy away from the basket. Rudy would kind of do that drop coverage, and Luka's like, okay, I know how to handle this. And he'd get in close enough to the rim that Rudy would have to make a move. It's a lob over top. It's a yam. And all of a sudden, the Dallas Mavericks are cruising. And so Luka did such a good job of messing with Rudy Gobert. And we haven't really seen these entire playoffs you can play Rudy off the floor in the postseason. I'm not saying we are at that point. And if we are, the Timberwolves are fucked. I'm not saying we're at that point, but it was getting to that point in game one. And the other part of it, the Robin to Luka's Batman, was on full display as Kyrie Irving was excellent. If you get that Kyrie for another month or so, this Mavericks team can win a championship. That's how good Kyrie Irving was, and that is how good he can be. He was attacking this game so well, and he was reading it so well, and I don't know if he gets enough credit for how smart he is out on the basketball court, because all the stupid things he says off of it, but he attacks so incredibly well. And again, just his reads and his understanding of what the defense is trying to do, and his ability to just find openings and be able to attack. His speed with the ball and his knowledge of like when to accelerate, when to ease up, when to go, when to not. It's almost second to none. He is such an amazing player. And I will admit, I have definitely overlooked this guy over the last couple of years. Like, oh, well, it's Luka and Kyrie. It's like, yeah, it's Luka. And part of it too is how frustrating Kyrie can be away from the court. But when he is on, there are very few in the National Basketball Association who are better than that guy. And when they're both on at the same time, this is a championship caliber basketball team. He makes them that. And the work that he was able to do in blowing past McDaniels and making Edwards really, really work on the defensive end was on full display. Just such a high level basketball player. And then the bigs showed up. Lively and Gafford both had very big moments, and a lot of that thanks to Luka for sure. But those guys knew what they were supposed to do in the Luka pick and roll, and defensively they helped force Minnesota into a 3-point heavy attack, which is not exactly what Minnesota wants to do. And I'm not just saying that they only shot those threes because Gafford and Lively were there, but I do think that is part of it a little bit in forcing Minnesota to the outside. But their work in those pick and rolls is going to be monstrous in this series. And if they can just kind of play that role, because Luka, he is so good, but you have to know what you're doing when playing with that guy. And Gafford, already being at that level with him is quite impressive. It was just all around such an impressive showing from the Dallas Mavericks. I loved what I saw from these guys. On the Minnesota side, they need better from their best. Anthony Edwards, quite frankly, wasn't good enough on either end. And the Dallas Mavericks made him work. And that's going to be a very interesting thing if he is wearing down, because we're late into it now, right? College, rather famously, ends early April, March as well, the whole tournament madness. So he hasn't played this long, and the Timberwolves didn't get this far last year, so that this is now this is now into the depths of the NBA. And I think we are starting to see him wear down. And the Mavericks have a team that is going to be really difficult on him if he is wearing down. Because they're going to need, if Minnesota is going to be successful in this series, they need him either on Kyrie or on Luka. And Kyrie made him run around and work. And Luka will just body you for 48 minutes and really wear you down that way. And Dallas, I thought in game one, did a really good job of kind of enforcing what they wanted to do on this kid and putting a lot of pressure on him, whether it was with the running or with the physicality or whatever it may be. They did a really, really good job in messing around with him in that sense. And then on the offensive side, he wasn't he got off to a good shooting start, but he was so uninvolved in the second half. Reggie Miller was wondering if he was hurt. Now, you take what the guy who compared Rudy Gobert to Michael Jordan with a grain of salt, and I understand that was maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek with the switching hands or whatever, but still, that they were wondering, like, where is this guy? Why is he so little a part of things? And that really allowed Dallas to pull ahead, especially in that fourth quarter when the Mavericks started to pull away, and credit to Minnesota that they were able to get it back thanks to, in part, a Karl Anthony Towns 3, but they need this guy. And they need him on both ends. Like, they didn't get past Denver without him, or they don't get past Denver, without him attacking, without him shooting, and without him defending. And he did like half of 3, not like 1.5, like he did 0.5 out of 3 on that. He simply wasn't good enough, and he was picked apart all game, and this was a real learning experience for him. There were some positives for Minnesota. McDaniels was great, but it does feel like a bit of a waste that you had that good of a shooting day from McDaniels, and you still lose. But I thought that he did quite well, and he did what you could expect anyway when he was on Luka and Kyrie. But I think for Minnesota, they now know what to expect a little bit more. They know the physicality that Dallas can play with, they know the speed that Dallas can play with, and they know the cerebral attack that Luka is going to play with. Now, it's easy to say, well, now they know. Now they'll be able to handle it because these are some of the best basketball players in the world that they are going up against. But at least Minnesota kind of has that feel for what this is now. And one more note on Minnesota. I thought Cat looked good in this game. He's hitting deep. His defense was fine. And he was attacking at the rim. Big putback dunk in this game as well. But when everything is running through him, that's not how this team is going to be successful. So an eye-opening game one, I think, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and a really impressive game one to steal home court advantage away by the Dallas Mavericks.